How's everybody doing? I'm Johnny.
I'm John.
Welcome to another episode of The Unconditional Life. Today, John, let's have a discussion about expectations.
Oh, I love it.
Expectations it's a fun topic for me. Because, expectations in our life, so some of them have their place. And I don't want to not give a fair shake to expectations that maybe when you're younger and you're trying to aspire to something and you give yourself expectations to try to achieve something as part of your personal process. I mean, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in our relationships, in our interactions, how we treat other people, and what basically our interactions is all about. Most of that is born from the expectations we keep close to us.
Absolutely. I had one of my favorite mentors for a couple years in my life said that all of our upsets come from unmet expectations that we project onto somebody else that they don't even know we have. And I think that there's a lot of freaking truth to that.
Yeah.
I think about, here's even the expectations we have. Here's a simple one. We just talked about marriage in our last podcast. How about all the expectations we have when we get married? And do we even talk about them? Who's going to do the dishes? Who's going to take out the trash? Who's going to pay the bills? Who does the grocery shopping? Who cuts the grass? And we just automatically, and this is important for me to mention because this whole thing is about the automatic conditions that we accept in our life, right? And how we are just allow them. It's the same thing with expectations. You get married and, you're supposed to mow the grass because you're the guy, right? Well, what if you don't like to mow the grass and your wife does? My wife likes to mow the grass. I hate to mow the grass. Simple things like that. And then you project these expectations on your spouse without even having any idea that they agree to them.
Yeah, we do that a lot. And beyond just our spouse, we have the big one that's glaring at me is about parent and their child. I think that most of the frustration that parents have and most of the conflict between children and their parents as they're growing, because everybody says there's always that time in a kid's life where they'll rebel or this or that or the other thing. But do we realize that we basically lay the groundwork for that to occur with the expectations we put on our kids?
Totally.
And
100%.
I think with me anyway, because I did the same thing. I used to do the same thing. And I'm trying every day to be a little bit better at certain things in my life. And one of them is with expectations. But when you lay out expectations, your expectations that you have for your children are so much more different than the other expectations you have in your life. Because you have you're very protective, and that's your role as a parent, is to be protective. But most of the time, you're trying to protect them from things that are real in your reality, and may not be real in their reality. We talked about the different perceptions that people have in the different realities. Look, as a kid, you're growing up, you're just trying to do your best, and you're trying not to make mom and dad mad, and trying to get good grades, and you're trying to have fun. There's not a lot that should be on your plate at a real young age.
No, I don't.
Then
totally agree.
Parents go adding expectations all the time, and again, there are some beneficial ones, but for the most part, there are expectations born out of our fears that add additional stress and pressure with your children. I've seen it. I know it because I've seen it play out in my own life because of some of the choices that I've made as far as the expectations that I've realized I was projecting onto my members of my family. So I'm learning, I'm growing, but that's something that I noticed I did a lot.
Absolutely. Well, especially in this day and age of, unless I'm mistaken, teenage suicide is off the charts. And I recently heard a statistic. I was having lunch with a guy who represents Big Brothers Big Sisters here in Utah, and I think Utah's like 7th on teen suicide right now, and it's sad to me.
As far as the state goes.
As far as a statewide, a nationwide statistic, and I have some alternative kids, and it has let me see from a different perspective. I have been able to meet a lot of alternative children, and They're no different than I was. The difference is, for some freaking strange reason, parents are telling kids things like, if you don't do it this way, you're not my child anymore. You can't come home. I don't love you. And it, to me, God sent me kids to love them. And as a younger parent, I parented out of a lot of fearful things, and I projected these expectations a lot on my kids, in specific because I was afraid for them. But as my last child has reached teenage years, and I noticed they were making some choices in a lot of my prayers, I kept asking Father and Mother, what do I do for this child? And over and over and over again, they said, we sent this child to you to love them. To love them and support them to become who they are, not with any expectation on your side about who they should or should not be. And that really transformed me a lot. And I have a very different relationship. There's an ebb and flow with this child as I'm watching him discover himself in this world. And a lot less angst in me because of all the expectations I thought. And he's turning out to be a pretty good kid.
Yeah.
Without me controlling him and running him from my fear-based expectations about, I got to teach you how to work and have a moral compass. And, well, guess what? The best way we teach is the way we is.
Yeah. and that's one of the reasons why this topic's really cool, too, is because I know, at least for me, and I believe you're the same way, John, we're trying to be as unconditional as we can in the different aspects of our life. And I think it's great for the people that we're in relationship with to be able to see different aspects of that.
Amen.
Now, there has been a big difference as far as the release of expectations, not just in my interactions with my family members and the people that I love and work with and stuff like that, but my emotional status. You know how much it does? Because here's the thing. An expectation for me, I kind of look at it like you have to track your expectations. What expectations did I lay out? And tracking them is kind of like a full-time job. You know, a lot of people, that's all they do as a parent, is they just track their expectations, if they're being met or not. But if you don't have the expectation out there to begin with, and you just come from an area of, I'm just going to be unconditionally as loving as I can and be as understanding as I can, be the best person and parent I can with that given information and proceed that way. But when you're not sitting there tied up with the expectations in your mind, you can actually have different thoughts. You can have your mind can be opened a little bit more.
Absolutely.
You can be more loving. You're not so emotionally ready because somebody broke your heart because they didn't meet an expectation. A lot of our own personal self-loathing that goes on in the world and self-judgment comes from the expectations that were not met for us by other people. We've been let down. And that happens to us over and over and over again in our life because we keep having expectation after expectation after expectation. So we kind of break ourselves down with our own expectations.
Yeah, I'm having a unique memory come to me. A few months ago, my wife and I were with some coaches mentors of ours. And by the way, if you guys aren't in the coaching and mentoring world, find somebody that has something you want to do and read their book. Take them to dinner, ask them how they did it. Success leaves tracks. It's an easy way to excel at anything, is to just find somebody who's got something you want and pay them, read their book, take them to dinner, compensate them somehow to teach you how they got it. It's a beautiful thing. But we were sitting there with Max and Jasmine, and this is expectation in reverse, right? I noticed my wife says, hey, we just got this Lyft charge for a ride in Salt Lake City. Well, we're in Tampa, Florida, right? So we have this quick dialogue back and forth. All of a sudden, my kid has taken several Lyft and Uber rides without my permission because I put my card on his without thinking about it. And for a minute, I was baked, right? I'm like, I'm turning him over my knee when I get home and light him up. And Max said, "Hey, John, we were just talking about expectations a few minutes ago. What did you expect that a 16-year-old child who has a boyfriend a few miles away would do if he had access to Dad's business card on a Lyft or Uber account? How can you be mad at that?" This, like he said, it's like leaving a candy bowl out and then expecting your children not to eat it. And I was like, there was like expectation in reverse.
It's almost
on me.
like we're tricking our kids.
Yeah, I just expected him to just be a grown-up and manage himself through the filter of me. So it was like I didn't have expectations, but I expected something of him.
Right.
And instead of just a
I
simple...
have them, but I don't know what they are.
And it was like... So I totally got bit in the butt by expecting something that wasn't... And it wasn't... My child's not prepared to have access to my business card.
Right.
On a Lyft account and make educated decisions about when he can take a ride and when not. Like, so it's totally like... And I actually owned it. And again, I'm different. I went to my kid and said, "I totally expected that you'd know how to govern yourself at this point in your life. And I gave you access to a credit card that I shouldn't have." We took the card off his account. We had a conversation. He asked me for his forgiveness, or for my forgiveness. I did the same. And he doesn't have access to my credit card anymore. So I don't get my feelings hurt by him spending money that's not his to spend.
Right.
Simple, easy way to solve it. Instead of expecting.
Well, with expectations comes, it's like, it's a different mentality. Instead of going with the flow and experiencing life as it happens, expectation throws you out of the moment. Because you're no longer experiencing what's around you. You're worried about things. You're worried about the expectations that aren't being fulfilled or are.
Yeah,
so
when it's going to happen.
It robs you. It robs you of moments.
I love that.
And I have that happen to me all the time because that's all I realized. I was loaded with expectations in my marriage as a father up until I recently just decided to look a little bit deeper and make a few changes in my life. But I'm realizing that when you're sitting there stewing over the expectations that you've had that aren't being met, and this could be any relationship, doesn't matter who it is, that it keeps you from being in the moment. And you need to be fully in the moment to be your unconditional self.
Absolutely.
You need to silence all the noise. And you're creating all that noise by laying your expectations out there. So,
you know what? And I'll go with, I bet Gary was right. We're upset about something. I'll bet you 95% of the time, if I was smart enough to call you and say, "Hey, brother, I had this expectation that you were going to do A, B, and C, and it's not getting done." I'll bet you dollars to donuts, more than 9 out of 10 times that person has no idea. You have no idea that I'm expecting anything from you. And then I'm all of a sudden upset at you because you haven't met my expectations that you didn't agree to in the first place.
right.
So
Right.
what that to me, that's like insanity. That's like doing the same thing over and over again, not getting it to happen. Being mad at you over and over and over again because you're not giving me what I want when I just didn't say, "Hey, bro, could you just handle A, B, and C?" No, but I'll handle A and B.
And you think the other person, and that's what we do. We assume the other person's vision of the situation is the same as yours.
The same, yeah.
Even though his perception, he was thinking about doing something completely different when you were talking.
And he
to him
was on
about
W,
that.
Y, and Z while you're on A, B, and C.
So your expectations, you think he heard everything and he's going to do what you said, but because his world is so different, you get upset that he wasn't seeing it the same way you were. That brings us into the other topic we talked about the other day about perception.
Oh, absolutely.
Not being able, and people do, they get mad that somebody has a different perception. Unmet expectation is nothing more than two different perceptions that are not aligning. Do you know what I mean? And you really look at it.
And typically and this is a really good one. This is a really good thing, that everything you want in life is on the other side of a conversation with another human being or yourself that you either are unwilling, afraid, or don't even know you need to have. And that there's so much truth in that. How many times did we not even have a conversation, but, I think this is going to, and you think this is going to, and then we show up in the same place without the right stuff because we just didn't ask.
Right.
I learned this. This is one of the greatest things I learned in the beginning. And just so you guys know, I'm not a marriage expert. I tried a few times to get it right. Third time, I started asking different questions. We figured it out, right? I changed me. Amazing how it happened in my marriage. But I heard this amazing thing as I was studying why marriages don't work. It's communication most of the time. So I learned an amazing thing about communication. Did you just tell me to take the purple sloth out and kill it in the backyard? No, that's not what I said. I'm being really ridiculous for a reason. Well, then what did you tell me? Oh, I actually just told you, would you take the dog for a walk and then come back home, and would you make sure you pick up the poop on the way? We don't ask questions. We automatically make assumptions that we think we know exactly what somebody told us, and we even ridiculous things. I remember the first time I tried it, my wife and I were in the shower together, and she said something to me, and I just didn't land, and I turned and said, did you say blah, 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 blah? And she said, what? What? Why would I say? And I was like,
that's a different problem, John. You probably got to get that checked out.
No, but it just comes down to, it's so easy to be clear. You expect something from me. Is this really what you said? Yes, it is. Oh, okay. But we blissfully don't clear things up.
Yeah.
We project our expectations. We accept other people's expectations when we could really just have an easy conversation. And most of the time then we're doing what we are understanding we've contracted to instead of hoping we'll get it done.
It's very true. 99% of the things, the way we think that conversation is going to go isn't accurate anyway. So let's just have conversations with each other, guys, and go a little bit easy on expectations. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you, but give it a try and just see what happens. See if your life gets a little bit less stressful. I don't know. We're just talking, starting a conversation.
Again, just having a conversation. We love you guys.
Thanks for being with us.
Yeah. Have a beautiful day.